Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much again for joining me here. Hope you're having a great day. Let's take another quick look here at Solana, see what's going on. It is Monday, so we're going to take a look at the macro, kind of talk a little bit about this head and shoulders pattern that's invalidated. Also discuss just quickly here, when I left off on Saturday, there's a reason why I say wait for confirmation above or below a specific level. 170 is kind of that important level to close above or below. Having said that, Solana closed over 170 on Saturday, so congrats to those who took a long up to about 177. Keep in mind this resistance level here at 178 is holding like a champ, but the more often you test a resistance, the more likely it is to break. So we could very well see Solana continue to run, and at this point here, so far we're seeing this play out happen. But what we want to discuss isn't just theoretical, hypothetical situations, it's more so what's going on the back end too that helps us understand what's going to happen moving forward. Either way you look at it though, the overall sentiment here for Solana looks pretty decent. I'm just not thrilled about this Bitcoin dominance, massive increase in percentage, and the fact that we have a CME gap as well, down as low as 67.7. Okay, so I do feel like Bitcoin could pull back a little bit. If so, I feel like all coins are going to do the same, only twice as hard. So just be mindful. It's probably not a great scenario here to take any long positions with any altcoins, even Solana, which appears to be fairly strong in the overall sense. So let's look at the back-end liquidation levels here and just quickly understand what that looks like here. First of all, there's still a lot of liquidation on the upside. Okay, now you got to keep in mind key level resistances are going to acquire and accumulate those kinds of volume and that amount of liquidation. Okay, so this is very standard for that. It doesn't mean the price is just going to shoot up that level though, because some people do misinterpret liquidation that it just instantly works as a magnet, which is true in a lot of ways. But when you got a lot of resistance and perhaps confluence pointing down, it's a different story, right? So there's a good chance Solana may not hit those levels just based on the overall sentiment of how the market's moving today. It is moving very weird, by the way. I really don't like when we have a CME gap to the downside, multiple convergences on a coin that's overextended, and altcoins are dropping contrary to that when they should be pumping. I don't like any of that, right? That's just terrible conditions to trade. And I usually generally try to avoid it. I didn't trade this weekend for a reason. Today, almost feeling the same, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards some shorts, and I'll explain why. So, having said that, 178 to 182 is that upper area of liquidation. There's a good chunk of change there, probably a good 2 or 3 billion as a rough estimate, okay? So we can kind of see that reflected here. Just know, once more, we're hitting this double top-ish for Solana, a bit more of a macro double top, and it's not necessarily a great sign. We can also see that there's been a lot of longs kind of leveraged for the last 2 or 3 trading days, kind of giving us the indication that we may see that shift in momentum, okay? But this isn't anything stark or out of the ordinary, nothing super crazy there. It's not too high or too low, just kind of natural with the price action. We can see as well here with open interest, we got, 169 to 170 is that heavy concentration of open interest. Big surprise, that's that key level support for Solana. So losing that level would potentially spell further downside here for this coin. And again, just to clarify, we got a bit of a double top looking something like this, okay? So generally speaking, we should experience price pullback based on that one thing. But we don't take trades on that one thing, do we? Let's take a look here at the weekly and double check a few things. I'll just go ahead and remove that. And let's quickly recognize that we are still bullish in the overall sense. Above all moving averages, we're over 50 on the RSI. Bitcoin is exuding the same behavior. MFI is pulling back, which isn't great. It implies that we have less money moving into this coin over the last 14 weeks than we do moving away from it. So generally speaking, the MFI being below the RSI is generally considered to be unfavorable. That's how I interpret it anyways. Daily time frame, we can recognize this here as well. That we have let's just clarify, there's a macro resistance at 185. Keep in mind that macro resistance was a multiple daily candlestick closure below that level in the past here back in July. Okay, so we got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attempts to break that level and couldn't. So therefore, if we do see the price action retest 185, it'll probably reject the first time. Not to say it couldn't just continue through it at some point, but the first time you usually see a rejection. And this could even be like the beginning of a macro cup and handle. Okay, you never truly know. But the overall sentiment here is at 185 is that resistance, so that'd be a prime area to consider a short. Okay, now let's move on to the benefit here in the overall sentiment. We look at the macro from the daily, looking really awesome. We're above all moving averages. I can actually draw out a trend line here for that as well, which I guess we could do that now. I generally like to clean up our charts and post them later for you, so that way you can kind of see them on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. Future reference, they look a little something like this. FYI, SUI is struggling. Absolutely on a terrible, terrible train right now. Anyways, conversation for another day, but what we're looking at here again, we're honoring our ascending trend. The overall sentiment here is that Solana is moderately bullish, okay? And when I say moderately, I just mean that, for the most part, we're seeing some shifts here. Our money flow index is very high. That's always a good sign, shows sustainability. But we also have our RSI tapering off, and the price action isn't. So that usually is a scary thing for me in the overall sense, at least right now. It could shift into a bullish divergence, but at this point, I don't really like when I see that. So overall, the daily time frame looks mostly positive, but there's still a couple of small little things kind of letting us know we could see the price continue lower. I mainly subscribe to that concept because Bitcoin dominance is increasing. Keep in mind, this is the effect, not the cause, and this is just a representation of how altcoins are doing compared to Bitcoin. So when this goes up, all are generally going down. We see that right now. And with that curve kind of being off, majority of altcoins, even the strong ones, are pulling back, contrary to Bitcoin. But when Bitcoin retraces just by a little bit, we see a significant margin. Look at this here. Bitcoin retraced by 0.5%, maybe. Okay, we could just say, let's just say 1% from top to bottom, okay? Solana, so far, from top to bottom, has corrected itself by 3%, right? So I wouldn't say that's a 3x, but it's pretty close, right? Again, different scenarios, doesn't necessarily mean it's just going to continue to run, but that is not necessarily a great thing. Okay, so 4-hour time frame, once again, as we see, overall, still above all moving averages, still looking good. We're respecting our ascending trend line. We're still over 50 on the RSI, but barely, right? A lot of these things are getting really close to being tested and or breaking, and the likelihood of it continuing lower based on the overall sentiment in the market is higher. MACD is diverging, trend strength index coming down. There's a lot of reasons why the price action is more likely to continue lower than higher, just based on how the market's moving. We take a look here at the Ichimoku cloud. We have shifted the momentum here from the lagging span being above to below the price action. That's sign number one that there's a reversal on the horizon. We can see these two indicators here. Usually when they compress, it shows that there's a shift in momentum happening. Doesn't mean that it's absolutely shifted. It just tells us that, hey, we've lost momentum to the upside, which is no surprise, right? We can kind of see a double top here as well. Having said that, we are still above the cloud, which is generally favorable. It implies that if you're going to consider securing profits and on a short, hypothetically, 170 would be a solid consideration there. But the overall sense here is that we're still looking pretty decent for Solana, but I see a lot of reasons why the price will continue lower, and a lot of it hinges on how Bitcoin performs here soon. Bitcoin's about to lose its ascending trend and shift to a bit of a downtrend. We're going to see the same thing for a lot of altcoins, so just be mindful of that. I would not really... it's hard to recommend taking long positions on coins right now that are doing so poorly. Not Solana per se, but just in general altcoins as a whole. So I would just be careful taking longs with altcoins today. That's really it. And if you're going to short carefully too, because you can't just get outrageous and go down to zero. All right. Thanks again for watching. Last but not least, there's only 2 days left, maybe 3 days left of this exclusive deposit bonus for Bitunix. Make sure you take advantage. Link down below for that. Otherwise, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thanks again so much for your time. We'll see you soon.